Okay, go.
Cool. Welcome to the July 16th Service Catalog SIG meeting. If you could put your name in to our agenda, I'll paste it in chat. Let everyone know that you were here. Even if you're not an official member or anything, you're totally welcome. If there's something you'd like to talk about, everyone should be able to edit this. Just put your name with the new bullet points and whatever you'd like to chat about, and we will try to get to everything today. And then otherwise, if you have a question and you need help cutting in, you can type +hand like this, and I will help lead. I can't use words today. Help people get a word in edgewise. Okay. So the first thing on our agenda is last week we all met in Sunnyvale, California, and hung out at Google and made Google very mad at Scott, and came up with a couple decisions and action items based off of things that we'd like to address over the next 3 months. I want to just roll through that quick. I don't really want to do a big summary unless we really need it, because it looks like everyone here was there except Jeff. I'm not sure who else the other person is who's called in. Okay, so I'm just going to go over the action items and kind of remind people what we signed them up for last week. So here is the doc from that, from our face-to-face. The first thing we talked about was the charter, our SIG charter for SIG Service Catalog. It's in review by the steering committee. Hopefully they'll make a decision this Wednesday about it. I had a couple action items that I'm going to knock off today related to making it so that any maintainer can nominate another maintainer instead of requiring it to only be chairs who can nominate maintainers. That should just make it easier for more people to help bring in new contributors. It's going to add a little bit of text to explain how to go from being a contributor to a maintainer, and maybe it's just linking people to existing docs or just making it a little more clear so that if someone comes in and they didn't get like the Carolyn welcome wagon, they still know how to jump in. Everyone should have reviewed the current charter by now. If you have feels about it or need something changed, please say it soon before the steering committee does their final look good to me, hopefully this Wednesday, because we really don't want to. It's been hard to get their attention, so let's not waste it when we finally have it.
Can that charter not be changed once it's done, once it's reviewed?
We will be able to change it, yeah. It's just that they're reviewing a lot of charters at the moment, and it took a while to get on their schedule. So if we immediately want to turn it around and change something like a week later, that we may not be able to do that quickly because they're super busy looking at like 50 charters right now.
Thanks. So they have to review everything and approve it each time we make a change.
That's the way I understand it, yeah.
Thanks.
Jonathan's pointed out they can't force us. They're not our dad. That's totally true. And that's what we decided, is that we are going to just move forward as though the charter has been accepted by them upstream and follow the processes that we've put out in the charter so that we're not blocked at all. So that's what we're doing. Looking for more action items. I was going to look into if there was still a problem where like you created an instance and you screwed up the provisioning parameters and then you turn around and fix it like 5-10 minutes later. That's the reason why we have the command svcat touch. That may have been fixed a couple months ago, so I'm just going to make sure that, do we still need that at all? We had a wonderful discussion about zombies that is still going on, by the way. So if you are interested in more talks about the delete discussion, and there's a ton of more information at the bottom of this doc about that, it's being actively bike shedded with SIG Arch, it looks like, on our mailing list right now. And that was Doug's action item, was talking to SIG Arch and seeing about what we can do. We discussed using CRDs now that it's gotten a little further along. To be clear, what we want to do is prototype it, not like immediately turn around and submit a PR and change everything right before 1.0. But we'd like to look at it and figure out, how's all of our roadblocks been removed, and do we have like a clear path to moving to CRDs off of having our own at CD cluster just for service catalog. So I was going to make a couple issues for that essentially so that we can track that work. One piece that was kind of interesting Doug suggested was that we could do a little bit of refactoring right now before 1.0 so that we have an easier migration going to CRDs and we don't have any disruption or more difficult things that we had to do in order to switch off of CRDs. So that's something that I'm going to add to our 1.0 roadmap if possible. A little bit more on the 1.0 plan. Paul gave up and he stopped saying that we had to have human readable class and plan names for 1.0, so that got dropped. And Jonathan, I think you already made an issue, right? You had a couple scenarios that IBM cares about for the user provided service provider.
Yeah, I have an issue for that, and I'm going to be working on it in the very near future.
Okay, cool. So those were all the action items and things that people signed up for. If there's any questions about the face-to-face, speak now. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep powering through. Cool. So we cut a release last week, and then we realized that, Jeremy, actually, do you want to talk about the fix you put in real quick for our chart last week?
Sure. So it wasn't really related to the release. I just noticed it because I started using the Helm chart to install the broker and use namespace resources. So like as we were going through and implementing all this stuff, we added the feature gate to enable you via Helm to pass that flag to the API server, but we never added the necessary RBAC resources. So if you're deploying to an RBAC cluster, you didn't, it wouldn't work because you were trying to get things, create things, and there was no permission that allowed the service account that Service Catalog used to do those things. So you ended up in a bad state where things weren't working. So I basically just added those new resources, and they're behind a conditional in the Helm chart. So if you enable the feature flag, it will create those RBAC resources for you, assuming the RBAC is also enabled. So that fixes that issue. Kind of a follow-up to that is that to get that out, we ended up doing another release the same week because we don't have the ability to independently publish the Helm chart and Service Catalog. They really should be separatable, right? Like we should be able to find issues with the Helm chart and use semantic versioning to do new releases of the Helm chart without having to do releases of Service Catalog itself. But our build process doesn't really allow that right now. And then there's kind of like this ongoing problem where we don't really have permission to maintain that Helm chart published ourselves. So I thought it would be good for us to just start discussing some alternatives, maybe moving away from deploying to the current repo that we basically have to get somebody from Google to go make sure that that process is healthy, and move to something more like what we're doing when we're publishing the SVCat binaries. So Microsoft can provide a storage account for that stuff, and we can integrate it into the build process kind of the same way we are now. And then look at moving the Helm chart to be independently buildable, independently versioned, so that we can avoid these kind of situations in the future. I mean, for this instance, it was pretty okay because there weren't really any code changes that had gone in, but conversely, there could have been code changes that went in that might have led us to a bad state.
So really there's three things, right, to make sure I'm understanding. One is we can't publish our Helm chart separately from our code. So every single time we make a change to the Helm chart, it forces a new bump, a new version of the code, even if nothing had changed. Mm-hmm. We're having trouble because, like, so right now we fixed that. We fixed the Helm chart, but you can't get it because it required Vic, who no longer is associated with the project, to do something for us manually. And we've been trying to fix that for months, and we still haven't. We're not getting traction. And unless someone from Google is able to maybe help take over, who's more active, like Scott or Kibbles, maybe it makes sense to have whoever's managing one of our storage accounts to be active, because it really sucks that we can't publish fixes because of something like this. And then one suggestion I had that's completely separate from if we change anything is right now our Helm repository URL that we tell people to use is specific to a hosting provider in a location. We have a website, we have a website, we have a domain. Like, it may be nice to have a vanity domain for our repository so that regardless of where it is or how it's implemented, or if it moves into a different, like, blob storage container or anything like that, it doesn't break people. Like, as a 1.0 item, it'd be really nice to not have the exact storage path what everyone's using, so that if we change it in the future at all, we're not breaking people.
Yeah, I think for 1.0, it's good to have that plus more general CI better. Make CI more better before GA, so that we can respond more quickly if we need to fix things. It's kind of okay now because we're not 1.0. It's like a GA. We're like an alpha, beta release, whatever. So people don't expect a lot of that. But I think once it becomes a 1.0 thing, there'll be some more expectations on like how quickly we'll be able to turn around fixes and fix critical things.
Yeah. So I don't know if anyone has, Morgan?
No, if we have that, you have that, whoever has that svcat.io, can we get, a sub domain or whatever the appropriate, slash charts. I don't know what the appropriate thing is. I don't do web to redirect right now and start advertising that. That way we just start as soon as possible. It's the only thing I can think of that we can like sort of start to do, and then when it eventually redirects somewhere else, it's not really a problem because we've already got that set up. So that's the only thing I can think we can do on a short time frame.
I can add an issue so that we can talk about what that should be, unless we just want to decide that right now, maybe like chart.svcat.io, and then it'll be whatever, there's a little bit more trailing after that, but the domain could point to Google storage. Does that seem cool to people? I can just make that change today, and then we can start encouraging people to use it.
Yeah, why not?
Okay. I'll do that then. Cool. Do we have any thoughts about, maybe Scott, do you have access to Vic, and maybe could also have the ability to push chart stuff so that we're unstuck?
I can email him, but I don't have access to that.
Okay. Is it terribly distasteful to think about in the future? I mean, either moving it to an storage account that you have control over, or a storage account on Azure that me and Jeremy have control over, or something like that. Like, it's a little worrisome that it's hard to get releases out consistently right now. We're pretty much stuck on this and have been for like, what, 2-3 months?
Sounds like we should make an alternate way to make those charts.
Yeah. How about, is it the way we make the charts that's the problem, or is it just pushing it somewhere that's the problem? Morgan, I mean, you and I looked at that a little bit, and I know you tried to make a PR that
I don't know what actually pushing a chart is. Like, I don't have no idea how that works whatsoever.
Okay.
Script in the repo that Vic put there that supposedly does it, except it doesn't when we try to run it.
Yeah. Let me give you a little background, because I manage the chart for some other things. There's an index file and then like a zip file, basically, or tar gzip, and those need to go basically to some static hosting, wherever it is. And every time you like publish a new version of a chart, that index file is updated, and then a new zip file is added for the version to this big just folder of.
Okay. Well, we have the encryption key or whatever to actually do the upload. I just I've never done it before, and so I've
Yeah, if we have the key, it should be fairly easy for us to maybe fix that repo sync thing. The alternative is if we want to run Chart Museum somewhere, we could do that as well. It's a little nicer. You get like an API and stuff.
So that if we switch to Chart Museum, that would mean not only would we need a place to statically host
We have to
files,
Chart
but
Museum.
also to run a server.
Yeah.
Okay. How about I make an issue and we can start tackling it and maybe take Morgan's PR and see if, as a group, we can figure out how to get that working?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a great idea.
Okay. Sweet. Okay, I'm just adding notes so we remember what we want to do there. Yeah, so I'll maybe I'll make that DNS change this afternoon, and then maybe Jeremy and I can take a look at Morgan's PR and see if anything jumps out at us on how to get that working, and we can try it out on a branch and see if we can get something to push. Does anyone have anything else about that before we move on? Great. Hey, Morgan, let's talk about prow. The dude at the bottom of the screen was flipping us all off.
What? Oh, sure. Test infra. Blarg. Okay. I made this issue and established somewhat of a rapport with the test infra guys, specifically Ben, who some of us met last week. This guy has also been helpful, but I've mainly been talking with Ben. I did a couple of PRs and whatnot to get us started and messing with prow, mainly adding the plugins. We do have a job now, which is somewhere else. Let's see, it's one of these, prow job. This is the thing that actually runs that unit test that I showed you last week. I'll see if I can find one to pull it up, but basically, this is only the first step. I've got a gajillion questions that I've written down in here about, what we currently do and what else we need to do. The first round of this was trying to basically say, what do we want? What do we already have? And try to connect up what needs to connect to what. We may need to revamp our build a little bit or push a build image based on how prow works. Because right now the test that I'm done is done basically with native Go. It's just running make test, no Docker. So that's the breakdown on that. What we have left is basically converting each of our Travis jobs into a prow job, if that's the appropriate thing to do. I'm not 100% sure that's the appropriate thing to do or not, or if we should have one giant prow job. That was a discussion that I was going to have at some point in the future. The Jenkins E2E test part of this, where we run it in an actual cube, I have not looked at that at all, and that requires basically 100% figure it out how to get a Kubernetes, and then install the service catalog and then run the EDE tests against it. Maybe we can reuse some of the Jenkins configuration, maybe some of the Jenkins script for the setup part. I'm not sure how much of that is a useful thing to do versus just like write it yourself. Some of these questions are not particularly relevant to us, just more to writing a prow job in general. It would be nice to have a document of how did we do this at the end, tell our story. I couldn't get anybody really interested in writing a CFP last couple weeks ago. Maybe we could do it together if we do this for just Seattle or whatever. Basically, all of the things that we own in our charter, I kind of looked through there, and we need to figure out basically how to make prow do each of these things, and hopefully reuse some existing prow infrastructure or images as we go. Question?
So Morgan, I was looking at one of your items was keep using a build image throughout the pipeline. I'm working on that right now. I'm going to make sure that there's an issue for it so we can track it against the prow milestone. Are there other things in here that we can split out and then other people can help with?
I mean, I think a lot of this is requires. I mean, I think we can split a lot of it out and we can like do stuff. I think it would be good to have a consistent conversation with somebody so that we're not swarming them with a bunch of stuff and that we're all on the same page at the same time. I mean, to take a look through the questions and if we can have a conversation where we discuss what our prow jobs should look like. Should we have a bunch of them? Should we have one big one? Should we should we do this? Should we do that? And then tackle each of those things. That's the way to go in my opinion. But
okay, I'm just trying to make sure that I totally get your point that we don't want all of us to individually hit test infra. I was just wondering, is there any work that you would like to farm out? Like, is there things that we can do just independent of communicating with test infra that other people can help with? Or at this point, is it all test infra coordination?
I think it's mainly test infra coordination. I think that preparing us, I think sort of figuring out a way to make sure everything is doable without Docker, because apparently they have, Docker and Docker issues, or they see issues with Docker and Docker frequently. I think trying to make sure our build works without Docker would be a good start, or and as well as figure out an image, figure out if we can push a build image, or how we can create an image in one step and then use the image in the next step. I think that's actually also a test infra kind of thing, unfortunately. But
okay, I've created a new whatever it's called, repository something on Quay for SC build image, so that, and I've been practicing on a branch getting Travis to push to it. But when you say use a build image between steps, when you say steps, do you mean like build, test, push?
No, I mean maybe maybe the first job is like set up the image, and then the rest of the job just use that image. Like that's my mind thinking. If we don't change the build image very often, maybe we can get away with just manually pushing it every once in a while. But I would prefer to have as much automated as possible.
Yeah, I mean, at some point when we move to prow, we need to be able to have secrets, right?
Yeah, no idea anything about secrets. That's a good question.
Yeah. Okay, maybe I'll leave a comment on this, that we also would like to understand how to put secrets for deploying our Helm repository, or the the SECat binaries.
Yep, that's a good
Okay.
question. Oh, there was something else I forgot. Yeah, but I mean, I think you can see that there's just basically a lot of to figure out what's available and what to do here, not necessarily like follow the guide. We're writing the guide as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
There was somebody who asked me where this was a couple weeks ago, but I didn't. I've actually seen them say anything here, so I'm not sure if they need a reminder or if they didn't have time. But yeah, something I'll follow up.
Okay.
Morgan, good job on getting us going and documenting it. I think I'm coming with Carolyn. You know, when you start getting frustrated here, and you need some help, speak up, and I'm sure we can find someone. You know, myself maybe, or somebody to help out. So I appreciate what you're doing. Speak up when you're getting frustrated.
Yeah, I know it's not frustrated. It's just you know, I gotta have a conversation and write everything down. That's all.
Yeah. And you know, Morgan, you made a great point at the face-to-face that really stuck with me, which is that you know, our SIG has a problem with bus factor at times, and in my opinion, if we switch to prow, a lot of these things right now that are buses for us would be lessened because we're not having to ask a certain person to handle Jenkins, for example, for us, because this will be managed infrastructure that isn't just a random person that we've kind of tricked into supporting it forever.
Right.
So I think that raises its importance to getting it done before 1.0, because honestly, I do expect after 1.0 that some people will, having accomplished their goal, switch to other things, and we may lose active people who may be in charge of some of our build bottlenecks. So the more that's in prow at that point, the better off our project will be.
I agree.
Cool. Next up, I just wanted to put out a call to anyone who's a reviewer. We have managed to get ourselves into a situation where a number of features have gone in over the past few months, and they have no documentation at all. No one knows how to use them. People aren't even aware that they're in service catalog anymore. Jeremy made a list of a couple. One second, he sent it to me. And he's starting to make issues right now to break that out. There are secret transformations, catalog restrictions, and namespace resources for broker, class, and plan. He's making issues for that. If you have information about these, you know how it works, you've used it before, we really need help with people writing the doc for this so that we're not pulling it out of somewhere, the cloud. We need help writing that doc. So, but in the future, if you're looking at a feature PR and you're thinking like, should I put an LGTM on it? If you don't see user-facing doc explaining what the feature is and how to use it, please don't merge it. Ask people to add that as part of the PR. Not as a follow-on, because it isn't happening at all. So, yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm suggesting. Is there a way to do that, Morgan? Can we make docs a requirement somehow?
I think that it should be in the checklist of things that we do. I mean, this is what I've been saying from the beginning.
Is there a checklist? Do we have one and I'm just not aware of it?
No, I think that it was basically been ad hoc the whole time, and I'll do it later has become exactly what I thought it was going to be, a get out of jail free card for people writing docs.
And we could even add, as you're doing a review, just add the needs doc label, right?
Sure.
I would actually put a hold on it or something. Don't merge it. We basically
right.
If you put needs doc, we use that flag at the moment to indicate that it's related to docs. Maybe the name of that label blows. Whereas I really want to say, and I'm encouraging other people to say, if you're a reviewer, please don't merge until you see docs in that PR.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Since we have this ability, sorry, I'm interrupting. Since we have this ability to put the template things in the PR, I don't know if anybody's going to read it. I read the one on the issues, and people seem to read that one, but you know, I'm not sure if the standard contributors are going to read a PR template, but I think we should write up a checklist of
Okay.
this, that, or the other.
Are you interested in writing that?
Yeah, sure. I just,
That'd be awesome. Thanks.
yeah.
And then otherwise, there was talk in Slack, moving on to the next item on the agenda here, is that there was talk in Slack about, as we look towards V1, at the face-to-face last week, we were making a lot of discussions about things that would effectively change our API and how you use it. And it was mentioned by Paul that because our version is V1 Beta 1, there's a bit of a commitment attached to using that version. And I linked to the deprecation policy in there. I don't think we need to decide it right now, but let's start thinking about what we can change without making waves, and what isn't going to need to stay the same. Like some of this is around deletes. I don't know if, are you raising your hand, Jonathan? Oh, okay, cool. I don't know if people have experience with this at all, but I get the impression that it's not like Semver where we're V0 and we can change anything before V1. I'm getting the impression that we actually can't change as much as we may want to, potentially. So just making people aware of that. And if you have feels about it, maybe we can chat about it next time. But I don't know, that may just change some of the things we've been talking about so frantically with SIG Arch too. Because that would be a big change, for example, to no longer do deletes or something like that.
Yeah, I have long-standing feelings, but
what are your feelings?
no, we can take it another time.
Okay, I just want to make people aware so that they could think about it and then.
Yes, I've been aware of this document for a couple of years. It's never been in a great state.
The deprecation policy guide, or?
Yes, it's changed many times. So anyway, moving on.
Okay.
We already covered this one.
Cool. I actually already put out Jeremy's call for more docs. He's put out issues. They're at the top of our backlog now for these. So if you'd like to help, we really need help. And then Morgan, do you have a demo for us?
No, it's the same. It's the same thing I did last week, except now it goes through the. Let me pull up the code. GitHub. So this is again this delete thing. Remember, yes, I've got a bajillion branches. Plus, 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 plus. Pull request. Okay, so during the meeting, I feel like I may not have appropriately communicated how this works, why it works, what's going on. I feel that with conversation from some people after the meeting that the understanding of how the Kubernetes API scheme, how it works is not intuitive to people used to REST and whatnot. And I kind of want to re-clarify this and maybe show that all of this does work in the way that is expected from the end user versus making changes to the external API. Does that make sense?
It does.
So what what the standard way Kubernetes works is delete is not really a question. It's more of an RPC that puts Kubernetes in the state that, yes, the thing is going to go away and there's nothing you can do about it. And so once the delete is accepted, that's it. That's end game for this resource. And things that look at the resource, I need to go through I have not gone through the event stream, but things that look at the resource, get the event stream of the resource, and eventually they see the delete go in to storage. And the watchers look at storage. So there's I don't know how to draw. Is there a whiteboard on this thing? Basically, you saying. Basically, there's multiple layers, and let me hopefully have the right image. Okay, so ignore the I need to fix this image. Ignore these two things, but pretend this is the API server where stuff comes in. This is the storage layer. Basically, what Watch is looking at, Watch looks at the storage layer through the API server. So the API server puts up a watch, and what that's looking at is not the things that are coming into the API server, but the things that are coming into storage. So when you issue a delete on an object, what happens is the delete comes in, it's changed to an update on storage, and then an update event goes out, right? And the update that contains the deletion timestamp. Does that make sense? Are we following that?
Yep.
Eventually, stuff happens, the finalizers are removed, blah, 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 and the delete either happens a second time or there's the updates when they come in and the API server sees that the finalizers have been removed or that the deletion period has passed because it's graceful, and that means there's a period. Once the API server sees that, and will issue the actual store.delete to the storage. Again, sorry about the comment there on the top there. But issues the actual delete to the storage, at which point the delete object, event, whatever, goes through watch to the watchers, everybody watching it. So my position here is that nobody sees the deletion until nobody should be relying on the deleted thing being gone until the deletion event from storage has been seen, which allows us to sort of insert steps into this operation. Okay? And so what I'm saying is, instead of the update here being go to deletion timestamp, it should be go to our custom field. Then the controller can reconcile that until it's either succeeded or failed, and then roll that back. If it succeeds, what it does is it does the standard delete. In this case, I'm saying it goes directly to the final delete as if there were no other finalizers, but we can, what actually would happen in this case is that we would do the standard, if the delete changes to an update of the deletion timestamp, back and forth, and eventually the API server says, actually delete the thing. And then the watch says, storage sends the event, whatever the watcher looks at thing at the end. And so I have code that does this, and it does this, as far as I'm concerned, the correct way. And so I can show you the code in the demo. And I guess it is Carolyn's turn to talk. I don't know when that was.
I just want to clarify a couple of things because there's a little bit of context from the face-to-face and that thread that Doug just referred to and this. what you're suggesting here is that it would be a field that is not deletion timestamp,
Right.
and redirect the delete to an update. We're not setting that. We'd be setting our own field. Is that right?
As a first step, a
Okay.
field that we have control over.
Okay.
And do it by hijacking the existing delete infrastructure and not by telling users to update a field, which
Cool.
seems to be the biggest obstruction here.
Okay. And this is something that we're able to do, this hijack that you're talking about, because we use aggregated API server, right? If we were using CRDs, we would need to be creative.
Yes, I believe
that, right?
I believe we would have to change the API. And if we're moving to CRDs anyway, I think that's the time to do it. By change the API, I mean we need to consider having two separate objects. One controlled by the server, one controlled by the user.
Yeah, that's what I want to get at, was that what we have here would work for 1.0, and then when we move to CRDs, we could switch to having those, I think we were calling them shadow.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
Some type of shadowing resource. One represents what the broker's really doing, and one represents our desired state.
Right.
And we could keep using delete, so it wouldn't change the user flow. Do I have that right?
Right.
Okay. So ignoring the argument with SIG-Arch, if we just did that, we do your thing in 1.0, and then later on we use a backing or a shadow resource and we keep using delete, do we even need to get SIG-Arch to agree with us, or can we just do that?
Well, I mean, in my opinion, we don't need SIG-Arch to agree to any of this, but to play nice, once it's a CRDs, I think, again, there's been discussion of CRDs sprawl and whatnot. I think that we could do the same thing in the existing API server. The problem is, again, it changes the API. So that once we're moving to CRDs, we're basically changing the API just because it's a hard cutoff anyway. So, 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
I'm not sure I understood what you were saying. What part of it is changing? Do you consider having a shadow resource changing the API, or were you referring to something else?
I would consider it a change of the API because the objects we're talking to, well, I guess we wouldn't have to change the API, but I would consider it a change in the way that the information is modeled to the user, because the objects that they create and destroy may necessarily sort of be recreated by the controller.
Is someone on the phone? Can they mute, please?
It is muted.
Thanks. Okay, cool.
I'd have to work through it to consider whether or not it's an actually breaking change, but my gut says that things would work differently, or we'd be basically tying ourselves into knots to make them separate but have the same behavior, if that makes sense.
Would you be interested in doing a working group or just a separate meeting where we could walk through some what ifs of putting in your change so that we have a solution for today, and maybe doing a little bit of thinking about what are some of our options when we move to CRDs, and how long would we have to maintain various things to meet the deprecation policy, and just kind of figure out what our options are, because I don't think we're getting very far with SIG-Arch. And I'd like to have some ideas for what we can do if we don't get changes from them.
Yeah. Is anybody going to show up if I try to schedule a meeting? I'm not great at scheduling meetings. I don't know if you've noticed.
I'll show up. Yeah, Jay, what's up?
Yeah, so Paul, so after the reception from SIG-Arch was pretty negative, I thought, Paul, and some others have started a discussion about if we stick with the current model, when we encounter a non-happy path and basically you wind up with a bad failed deletion scenario, we could create a new object which is meant to only for interaction with admins, and basically you're not moving the instance, but you're creating here goes your shadow instance or shadow copy of the instance, and you're moving it onto an admin queue basically. So the admin can deal with it, and he says, oh, I see this instance, the deletion failed. Here's the details on the specific instance or the binding or whatever it was that failed, and I need to go and clean it up manually. It kind of gets it out of the area of the user for trying to deal with it, and helps us keep track of it. I guess I'm a little concerned about the approach Morgan was describing, but I'm certainly up for listening and discussing it more. But this was one other option that it sounded like it had some potential. Paul said he'd get some more details on paper.
Doug?
Yeah, sorry if there's a lot of background noise. I don't think the solution Paul's talking about actually solves the problem. He's talking more about how to clean up a leaky model, and that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a situation where we want to basically undo the delete, because Kubernetes already started on the process, and that's a very different problem. So I don't think Paul's solution actually solves it.
Can I ask just one question on that before Morgan's hand? Sorry. When you say it doesn't solve the problem, do you mean creating the shadow resource unconditionally at all times, like what we were suggesting for CRDs, or do you mean just in the case of recovering from a stuck and delete state?
Yeah, definitely in the case of a stuck delete case, it doesn't solve the problem. It does something actually kind of weird. The shadow resource for all cases, to be honest, I need to think more about it. I don't know whether that solves it or not. It introduces an extra layer that may be able to work, but I think you're going to get into really weird situations where someone watches the wrong resource and acts on delete of the wrong resource. And that's incredibly risky. And you could just say, oh, well, they're not paying attention, they're watching the wrong resource, and it's their own fault. But if we present a model that's so confusing for people to follow, then it's really our problem. So I just need to think about it more to know whether a shadow resource in all cases is the right thing to do. I just haven't thought about it enough.
Yeah. Morgan?
I think Doug had a good idea there with delete and watching of the wrong resource. I didn't consider that one, but I don't think that Paul's make it someone else's problem is the right way to go about this. I think if we're going to say these are user serviceable things, and this state is still attached to a user, that making it the admin's problem doesn't solve the actual problem of I'm being charged for this thing and I can't use it anymore, or B, that the thing was deleted when it never should have been deleted, and now I can't use it anymore because someone else screwed up. I don't think that the put it in the admin queue solves either of those things, especially when we still can't undelete the thing. It still ends up being force delete it and then recreate it and then hope everything syncs back up. But the shadow thing, I think I'd have to think. I think it is a concept that can work. Again, I think we'd need to go over it again. I did a presentation on someone who's basically implemented these kind of situations with CRDs, not for this issue, but for other issues. And yeah, I guess we could try to schedule some time to talk about it. But yeah.
Did I hear you right that somebody else in another SIG has tried to solve this as well?
No, somebody inside of IBM has a similar use case, and we did a presentation at KubeCon about CRDs and basically this concept of there's shadow resources, or there are resources that the user talks to, and then there's resources that the controller talks to, and then you reconcile the state between those.
Yeah.
I'll have to pull up the slides and try to figure out which case this is more like, but I feel like this is a thing that is definitely a common enough problem that I would prefer if SIG-ARC, whatever, acknowledged it and tried to help us solve it versus, deny. But we'll get there, I think, eventually, maybe.
Yeah. I ended up, when I did the prototype for defaulting like provisioning parameters and things like that, the original implementation was actually with shadow resources. So I'd love to be involved with this and kind of talk about it, because I feel like multiple people have stumbled upon that as a workaround for what they need to do. So
yeah. I think it's a pattern, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know what the word is nowadays.
Pattern, anti-pattern,
Sure.
something.
Yeah.
Are you cool with maybe putting up a doodle or something and we can meet and chat about it?
When is available? I'm not good at this. When is what?
Me personally, I'm available the rest of the month.
Okay. I'll try to make something consistent, and we can just pick a day. Yeah, I'll try.
Cool. Let me know if you need help wrangling people. I can be very annoying when I need to be.
What?
My superpower.
Anything else in this? Oh yeah. Do you actually want to see the demo, or do we just?
Yeah, that'd be kind of neat.
So just let me run through the code real quick, and because it's really unimpressive, because basically the test works, and it's the standard test that goes through the add a broker, broker does the class thing, create an instance, create a binding, then do unbind, uninstance, et cetera, et cetera. So I can just, this is the test. The test basic flow test is the one that does this. It just goes through and it goes in order, and it's the happy path. You can see I just ran it here. Everything worked. So there's nothing super impressive to see there. But the key thing is, how does this still work? And I didn't make any changes to the test. This is just the test working. I did make changes to a different test to explicitly show that this works because it goes through all the stages. And so that might be more interesting to look at. So let me see. Okay, so this is the API server test. So how I did this was I hijacked an existing field, the secret name, because I didn't want to go through all the API generation and clutter this up. And then here's our expansion that calls our special delete, which is sub-resource delete. Otherwise, it's literally exactly a copy of delete. And I added this line. That's exactly what this is. I made a change to the controller, which you can see here, which says, has the secret name been set to my special, this is our tombstone flag that we would make an actual field for this. But since I hijacked it, I check that it's there, and then I set reconcile delete as the state that we're in. Then when we actually go, okay, we enter the reconcile delete state, if the timestamp's not set, we know that we haven't gone down the real timestamp thing. And we do our special delete. And special delete is literally nothing else, but this is where we would do all the broker stuff. This is where we would say, broker reconcile is the thing success. And we would loop in here, or we would enter this and exit it until it actually succeeds or fails, at which point the last step is call the special delete, which, as we remember, we don't remember, we didn't cover it yet, but special delete is literally a resource that has only the standard delete implemented, and this is the delete that sets the deletion timestamp. Okay, so back to the original delete, the standard delete that the client would call. What does that do? It sets the secret name to my special key. So it's hard to go in order because it's all inside out, upside down. But the controller proceeds through this as normal. I mean, with modifications. I got nothing else. This is all I got. But, you know, it works.
Do you hear the mic drop?
I have to drop. Sorry, guys.
All right. Bye-bye, guys. I'll stop the recording, and we can have a meeting some other time, it sounds like. Okay?
Bye.
Bye-bye.